The escape pod plummeted through the lavender clouds of planet Sarim, trailing smoke and sparks. Inside, Lieutenant Day clutched the emergency harness as warning lights flashed red across the console. Everything had gone wrong so quickly. One moment his transport ship was on a routine supply mission, the next it was ambushed by unknown vessels. Now he was the only survivor, hurtling toward an uncharted world. "Brace for impact," the automated system announced calmly. Day closed his eyes as the pod crashed through the upper canopy of massive luminous trees and slammed into the soft ground. When he regained consciousness, Day's first sensation was the smell of sweet air. His second was the realization he wasn't alone. Standing around his damaged pod were tall, slender beings with skin that seemed to glow with an inner light. Their features were delicate and perfectly symmetrical, with large almond-shaped eyes that shifted colors like opals catching sunlight. They stepped back as Day painfully extracted himself from the wreckage. His military training kicked in as he assessed potential threats, but these beings appeared to have no weapons. In fact, they seemed more frightened of him than he was of them. "I mean no harm," Day said, raising his empty hands. To his surprise, one of the aliens stepped forward. "We understand your words," she said in a melodic voice. "I am Song. We are the Nari people." Her skin shimmered with a blue-green light as she spoke. Day introduced himself, explaining his crash as simply as possible. The aliens led him to their settlement, a collection of structures that appeared to be grown rather than built, rising organically from the landscape in graceful spirals. Over the next few days, Day learned that the Nari were a peaceful species who had evolved without predators or conflict. Their society valued beauty and harmony above all else. They were fascinated by Day's descriptions of human civilization, especially the concept of soldiers. "Why would beings need defenders?" asked Min, an elder whose skin glowed a deep purple. "What threatens your kind?" Before Day could fully explain, the answer presented itself. A warning call echoed through the settlement as several Nari rushed in, their skin pulsing with frightened red light. "The rock come again," cried one. "3 more taken." Min turned to Day with grave eyes. "The rock arrived on our world 1 cycle ago. They hunt us for sport and food. We cannot fight. We can only hide." Day followed the Nari to a lookout point. In the distance, he saw dark, hulking figures moving through the forest. They walked on 4 powerful legs with 2 additional limbs ending in wicked claws. Their bodies were covered in thick plates, and their eyeless heads swiveled constantly, sensing their surroundings. "They hunt by sensing heat and movement," explained Sun, a young male who had appointed himself Day's guide. "They cannot be reasoned with. They only kill." That night, Day returned to his pod and retrieved his emergency kit. Inside was his sidearm, combat knife, and tactical gear. As a coalition soldier, he was trained to protect the innocent, even if those innocents weren't human. "I can help you," he told the gathered Nari council. "I can teach you to defend yourselves." The beautiful aliens looked at him with doubtful expressions. "We have no concept of fighting," said Song. "Our bodies are not made for conflict. Everyone can learn to protect what matters," Day replied firmly, "and you have advantages you don't realize." Over the following days, Day examined the settlement's vulnerabilities. The Nari could manipulate their bioluminescence, creating patterns of light that they used primarily for communication and art. Day wondered if this ability might be used defensively. His theory was tested sooner than expected. As darkness fell, 3 rock creatures approached the settlement's edge. The Nari began to retreat in panic, but Day gathered a small group. "Follow my lead," he instructed. "Use your light as I showed you." As the predators advanced, Day positioned himself between them and the Nari. The first rock charged and Day rolled aside, drawing it away from the others. The second and third creatures moved toward the Nari, but at Day's signal, the aliens flashed intense, rapid patterns of light directly at the hunters. The rock staggered, disoriented by the unexpected sensory assault. Day used the distraction to attack the first creature with his combat knife, finding a vulnerable spot between its armored plates. For the first time in their existence, the Nari witnessed combat. They watched in awe as the human soldier moved, with precision and courage, protecting those who could not protect themselves. When the short battle ended, the remaining rock retreated into the forest. The Nari gathered around Day, their skin glowing with new colors he hadn't seen before. "What is this feeling?" asked Song, her voice trembling slightly. "Hope," Day replied simply. "It's the beginning of hope." The days after the rock attack changed everything. Day established a daily training routine for any Nari willing to learn. At first, only a handful volunteered: Song, Sun, and 3 others whose names Day struggled to pronounce. Their movements were graceful but hesitant, their delicate bodies seemingly unsuited for combat. "I don't teach you to become killers," Day explained one morning as they practiced simple defensive stances. "I teach you to protect what matters." Song tilted her head, her skin shifting to a thoughtful blue. "The distinction seems important to you." "It is," Day replied. "Humans learned long ago that violence without purpose becomes a poison to the soul. The Nari society opened to die like a flower. He discovered they communicated not just through words, but through light patterns that conveyed complex emotions, impossible to translate. Their art was living, sculptures that grew and changed, music that adapted to the listener's moods, and dance that told the history of their world." In turn, Day shared human stories. The Nari were fascinated by tales of Earth's diverse cultures, of oceans and mountains so unlike their luminous forests. They gathered in the evenings to hear him speak of human resilience, of cities rebuilt after disasters, of people who faced impossible odds with courage. "Your kind evolved as both prey and predator," observed Ho, the community's eldest member whose skin had faded to a soft white glow. "You understand both fear and power. We have only known peace until now." One afternoon, Song took Day to a secluded grove where crystal formations rose from the ground like frozen fountains. When she touched them, they resonated with beautiful tones. "This is our memory place," she explained. "Each crystal holds the collected experiences of a Nari who has completed their life cycle." Day asked, "Do you fear death?" "We see it as transformation," Song replied. "The body returns to the soil, but our light, our essence, joins with these crystals. What do humans believe?" "We have many beliefs," Day said, "but most share the hope that something of us continues beyond our physical end." Their conversation was interrupted by Sun, who arrived breathless, his skin flashing urgent patterns. "More Nari taken from the eastern settlement," he reported. "The rock grow bolder." That evening, Dai examined the simple weapons he'd helped the Nari create: spears with crystal tips, nets woven from luminous fibers. Not enough to stop a determined rock assault. "You're troubled," Song said, sitting beside him. "Your people learn quickly, but not quickly enough," Dee admitted. "We need an advantage beyond physical strength." Song's light dimmed thoughtfully. "Perhaps we already have one. Come with me." She led him to a small structure where several Nari worked with various plants and crystals. Ju, the settlement's knowledge keeper, greeted them. "The human wishes to understand our light," Song explained. Ju nodded and held up a small crystal pendant. "Our bodies produce light that changes with our emotions and thoughts. These crystals can store and amplify that light." Day took the pendant, feeling a slight vibration against his palm. "Can these hurt the rock?" "Not directly," Ju replied, "but we've observed that certain frequencies disorient them temporarily. It's how some Nari have escaped capture." An idea formed in Day's mind. "If we combine your light technology with strategic positioning..." Over the next few days, Day and the Nari developed a new defense system. They placed crystal amplifiers around the settlement perimeter, with Nari stationed to channel specific light frequencies through them when needed. They also continued physical training. Dai was surprised by how quickly the once passive aliens adapted. Their movements became more confident, their understanding of tactics sharper. "You don't build things to last," Sun commented one day, watching Day repair his damaged communications device. "What do you mean?" "Human technology seems designed to be replaced. Our creations grow and evolve with us." Day considered this. "Perhaps that's why we're always searching for something new. We know our time is limited." "Is that why you fight so fiercely?" Song asked, joining them. Because your lives are shorter than ours? Maybe, Day admitted. Or maybe it's because we understand how precious life is, precisely because it ends. That evening, as twin moons rose above the forest, the Nari performed a traditional light dance in Day's honor. Their bodies created patterns that told the story of his arrival and how he had changed their world. Day watched in awe, realizing how much he had come to care for these peaceful beings. He had arrived as a soldier, but among the key Nari he had found something he never expected, a place where his protective instincts served a purpose beyond war. Tomorrow we test our defenses, he told Song as the dance concluded. The rock must learn that the Nari are no longer easy prey. Her light pulsed with determination. Thanks to you, we are becoming something new while remaining true to ourselves. Neither prey nor predator, but protectors. The morning of the rock attack dawned with unusual clarity. The twin suns of Sarim cast a golden glow over the Nari settlement, where everyone moved with purpose, preparing for the defense plan Dai had designed. Crystal amplifiers stood at strategic points along the perimeter, each attended by a Nari, trained to channel specific light frequencies through them. They will come from the north, Day told the gathered defenders. The forest there provides cover, and their previous attacks followed that path. Song stood beside him, her skin shifting between determined blue and nervous purple. Our scouts, report movement. Perhaps 20 rock more than ever before. Day nodded grimly. He had expected this. The previous smaller attacks had likely been hunting parties. This would be a full assault. Remember your positions, he instructed. Do not engage directly unless absolutely necessary. Use the light patterns we practiced, then retreat to the secondary positions. The waiting was the hardest part. The Nari were not accustomed to anticipating conflict. Some of the younger ones flickered anxiously, their control over their bioluminescence, wavering with their emotions. Sun approached Day, carrying a crystal-tipped spear and a small shield woven from luminous fibers. For you, he said, made from the strongest materials we have. Dai accepted them with gratitude. The weapons were beautiful in their way, designed with the same artistic care the Nari put into everything they created. The first warning came as a subtle vibration through the ground. The rock moved heavily, their armored bodies crushing vegetation underfoot. Day signaled to the first line of defenders to take position. The rock emerged from the tree line, massive hunched predators with eyeless heads swiveling to detect heat and movement. They paused at the edge of the clearing, as if sensing something different about their usual hunting ground. Now, Day commanded softly. The first group of Nari activated their crystals, channeling a pulsing pattern of light specifically designed to confuse the rock's heat-sensing organs. The effect was immediate. Several rock reared back, their limbs thrashing in confusion, but the creatures adapted quickly. 3 larger rock pushed forward, seemingly less affected by the light. Day realized they must be older, more experienced, hunters. Second pattern, he called. Another group of Nari stepped forward, their crystals emitting a different frequency. This slowed the advance but didn't stop it. The rock were learning, adjusting to each new defense. They're too determined, Song said beside him. Something drives them harder than hunger. Day made a quick decision. Fall back to the inner circle. We'll concentrate our efforts there. As the Nari retreated in ordered groups, Day noticed a different pattern in the rock's movement. They weren't just attacking randomly. They were being directed. One rock, larger than the others and bearing distinctive markings on its armor plates, made sharp clicking sounds that seemed to coordinate the others. The leader, Day muttered. If we take down that one. Before he could complete the thought, the rock charge intensified. 3 broke through the light barrier, heading directly toward a group of younger Nari who had not yet retreated. Day sprinted, forward, crystal spear in hand. He intercepted the first rock, driving his spear into the junction between its armor plates. The creature emitted a high-pitched shriek that sent the other rock into a frenzy. Day barely dodged the swing of a massive claw, feeling it graze his shoulder. Song and Sun arrived with 5 others, surrounding the wounded rock. They flashed intense, light directly at its sensory organs while Day struck again with his spear. The creature collapsed, but not before its thrashing limb caught Day across the chest, sending him sprawling. Pain bloomed along his ribs, but Day forced himself up. The remaining rock were pressing the attack on multiple fronts now. The Nari were holding their positions, their light patterns more coordinated than Day had dared hope, but it wouldn't be enough. "The leader," Day gasped to Song. "We need to target the leader." Song's skin flashed with understanding. She gathered her fastest runners and they moved to position themselves around the rock leader, which remained at the edge of the battle, directing the others. Day dragged himself to the nearest crystal amplifier. "On my signal," he told the Nari, positioned there. Maximum intensity directly at the large one with the markings. The pain in his chest made it hard to breathe, but Day knew timing was critical. He waited until Song's group was in position, then raised his hand. Now, every crystal aimed at the rock leader flashed with blinding intensity. The creature staggered, its coordination disrupted. Song and her group darted in, using their smaller weapons to strike at vulnerable points Day had identified during previous encounters. The leader thrashed wildly, then emitted a different sound, lower, more resonant. To Day's amazement, the other rock immediately began to retreat, dragging their wounded with them. As the last rock disappeared into the forest, the Nari erupted in patterns of blue-gold light, their expression of joy. They had defended themselves for the first time in their history. Day tried to stand but fell back, his vision blurring. Song was suddenly beside him, her cool hands examining his injury. "The human is wounded," she called. Others rushed to help, their skin pulsing with concern. As consciousness faded, Day heard Ho, the elder, speaking above him. "Today we witnessed true courage, not in our defense, but in his willingness to bleed for those not of his kind. This is something we must understand if we are to survive." Day woke to soft light filtering through translucent walls. His chest was wrapped in a cooling gel that numbed the pain from the rock's attack. He tried to sit up but found his strength hadn't fully returned. "Be still," came Song's gentle voice. She approached with a bowl of something sweet-smelling. "Your body needs time to heal." "How long was I unconscious?" Day asked, accepting the bowl. 3 sun cycles, she replied. "The settlement has been quiet. No rock have returned since the battle." Day sipped the liquid, feeling energy spread through his limbs. "They'll be back. That retreat was tactical, not final." Song nodded, her skin shifting to a thoughtful blue. "We've been studying what happened. The rock communicate with each other in ways we didn't understand before. Over the next few days, as Day regained his strength, the Nari brought their observations to him. Ju, the knowledge keeper, had collected data on the rock's movements and reactions during the battle. They respond to specific sounds and heat patterns, Ju explained, displaying light patterns that mimicked the information. The leader controls the others through complex clicking noises. Day listened intently, impressed by how quickly the once passive aliens had become students of their enemy. Where he expected to find only artistic sensibility, he discovered scientific minds adapting to new challenges. By the 10th day, Day could walk the settlement perimeter again. He found changes everywhere. The Nari had strengthened their defenses, without his guidance, incorporating new crystal formations that could produce more intense light bursts. "We've been experimenting," Sun told him proudly, demonstrating how they could now focus their bioluminescence through the crystals to create narrow, intense beams. "We discovered we can disrupt the rock's armor if we match the frequency to their body temperature." The settlement itself was changing too. The graceful open structures now incorporated protective elements, strategic barriers and elevated platforms that provided both beauty and function. One evening, Ho called a community gathering. The elder's white glow pulsed gently as he addressed the Nari and their human protector. "For generations we have valued harmony above all else," Ho began. "We believed that to create was the highest purpose. Now we understand that preservation requires both creation and protection." The gathered Nari flashed agreement patterns across their skin. Day watched in amazement as these beings, who weeks ago couldn't comprehend fighting, now embraced a balanced view of survival. The human has taught us to defend, Ho continued. But we have something to teach as well. Our light is not just communication, it is power. At Ho's signal, Song stepped forward with several others. They formed a circle and synchronized their bioluminescence into a pattern Day hadn't seen before. The light coalesced between them, forming a swirling orb that hummed with energy. We've always used our light individually, Song explained to Day. But together, we can create something stronger. The demonstration continued as the Nari showed how their combined light could be directed, could penetrate surfaces, could even temporarily blind without causing harm. This is how we will adapt, Ho said. Not by becoming like the rock, but by using what makes us unique. Later, walking with Song beneath the twin moons, Day expressed his amazement at their progress. In weeks, you've developed defenses that took human civilization centuries to discover. Song's skin rippled with modest blue. We had motivation and a teacher, and perhaps our peaceful nature gives us an advantage. We see protection as an extension of creation, not its opposite. They paused at the edge of the crystal grove where the memory stones caught moonlight and scattered it in rainbows across the ground. My people have a saying, Day said. Necessity is the mother of invention. We have a similar concept, Song replied. Light finds new paths when shadows fall. Their conversation was interrupted by Sun, who approached with urgent news. Our scouts have found something. The Rock are not just hunters, they're building something at the edge of our territory, a structure unlike anything we've seen before. Day's military instincts sharpened. Show me. The three traveled to a high ridge overlooking a distant clearing. Even from far away, Day could see the massive structure taking shape, a dark, angular contrast to the organic forms of the Nari world. It looks like a hive, he said. Or a forward base. They're not just hunting anymore. They're colonizing. Song's light dimmed with concern. What does this mean? It means they're planning something bigger than raids, Day replied. We need to prepare not just for attacks but for war. As they returned to the settlement, Day watched the Nari moving about their evening tasks. They were still beautiful, still graceful, but now there was something else in their movements. Purpose, determination, strength. We will be ready, Song said, seeming to read his thoughts. Not despite what we are, but because of it. Day nodded. These beings who had never known conflict were adapting in ways he couldn't have predicted. They weren't becoming warriors like humans. They were becoming something entirely new. The Nari settlement buzzed with activity as dawn broke. For 20 days they had prepared for this moment, the final confrontation with the Rock. Scouts reported that the massive hive structure was complete, and the Rock were gathering in unprecedented numbers. Day stood on the central platform, surveying the defenses they had built together. No longer was this just about survival. It was about claiming their right to exist without fear. All positions report ready, Song said, approaching him. Her skin glowed with calm determination, so different from the frightened being he had first met. Remember the plan, Day told the assembled Nari defenders. We don't fight them on their terms. We use what makes you unique. Around the settlement perimeter, Nari had positioned themselves at crystal amplifiers, ready to coordinate their light in precise patterns. Others waited with weapons designed to exploit the weaknesses they had discovered in rock armor. They're coming, Sun called from his lookout post. Many more than before. And something else. Something larger. Day felt a chill. He had suspected the Rock might have a deeper hierarchy than they'd seen so far. If a superior leader had arrived, their carefully planned strategy might not work. The forest edge erupted with movement as rock poured into the clearing. At their center towered a creature twice the size of the others, its armor plates thicker and covered in strange markings. This was no mere pack leader. This was a queen. Hold positions, Day commanded. Wait for them to commit. The Rock advanced in formation, more organized than in previous attacks. The queen remained at the rear, protected by a ring of the largest warriors. First light pattern, Day ordered when the rock reached the midpoint of the clearing. The outer ring of Nari activated their crystals, producing the disorienting frequency they had perfected. Many of the smaller rock faltered, but the larger ones pushed through. Second pattern, Day called. Another group of Nari joined, their light combining with the first to create a more complex effect. The rock advance slowed but didn't stop. Song looked at Day with concern. The Queen is directing them somehow. They're adapting too quickly. Day nodded grimly. We need to separate the Queen from her guards. Sun, ready your team. Sun signaled, acknowledgement from his position. His group had trained for the most dangerous task, creating a diversion that would draw away the Queen's protective circle. As the rock breached the first defensive line, chaos erupted. The Nari executed their movements with precision, falling back in coordinated groups while maintaining their light patterns. Yet the Queen's presence seemed to make the rock stronger, more resistant to the tactics that had worked before. Now, Sun, Day shouted. Sun's team darted from cover, their bodies flashing with provocative patterns designed to trigger the rock's hunting instinct. As planned, several guard rock broke formation to pursue them. Day seized the moment, leading a small strike force toward the Queen. They moved through the battle with practiced coordination, using the chaos as cover, but the Queen sensed their approach. She turned her massive head toward them and emitted a screeching call that stopped Day in his tracks. Pain lanced through his skull, and he saw the Nari around him falter as well. She's using sound against us, Day gasped, fighting to stay conscious. Song stumbled to his side. We can counter it. The crystal resonance, we need to match her frequency. Through the haze of pain, Day watched as Song reached for her communication crystal. Her skin began to pulse with rapid patterns, sending instructions to the other Nari. Around the settlement, crystals began to hum, producing a counter-frequency that dampened the Queen's sonic attack. Relief flooded through Day as the pain receded. But they had lost precious time. The Queen's guards had regrouped, forming an impenetrable barrier around her. We need a new plan, Day said. We can't reach her directly. Song's eyes widened suddenly. The memory stones, their resonance, if we channel enough light through them simultaneously. Day understood immediately. A chain reaction. But someone would need to place a crystal amplifier near the Queen. Their eyes met, and Dee knew what he had to do. Cover me, he told Song. Get everyone ready for the final light pattern when I give the signal. Before she could protest, Day grabbed a crystal amplifier and charged toward the Queen. Rock warriors turned to intercept him, but coordinated light flashes from the Nari created momentary blindness, opening a path. Day took hit after hit, his body absorbing blows that would have killed a Nari instantly. Pain became distant as he focused on his goal. Just a few more steps. He crashed through the final line of guards and slid beneath the Queen, placing the amplifier against her underbelly where the armor was thinnest. With his last strength, he activated the device and raised his hand in signal. Across the settlement, every Nari focused their light through the memory stones. The energy traveled through the crystal network, converging on Day's amplifier. The Queen's massive body seized as resonant energy penetrated her armor. A blinding flash erupted from beneath the Queen. When the light faded, she lay motionless, on the ground. The remaining rock, suddenly leaderless, scattered in confusion. Song found Day lying still beside the fallen Queen. His body was broken, blood seeping through multiple wounds. No, she whispered, her skin pulsing with grief colors. You cannot leave us now. The other Nari gathered around, their combined light enveloping Day's still form. Without discussion, they began the ritual normally reserved for dying Nari, channeling their essence into a memory crystal to preserve something of the departing soul. He is not Nari, Ho said softly. We don't know if it will work. He became one of us, Song replied. His light deserves to continue. Days later, as Day's body was laid to rest in the crystal grove, a new stone began to glow. It pulsed with a unique pattern, not quite Nari, not quite human, but something new. Song placed her hand on the crystal, feeling its warmth. "You taught us to protect what matters," she said quietly. "And we will. Not as warriors, but as guardians of life and beauty." The crystal pulsed once in response, as if in agreement. Around the settlement, the Nari went about rebuilding. They incorporated new designs that balanced openness with security, beauty with strength. Scouts reported the rock retreating from the planet entirely, returning to whatever dark world had spawned them. In the light of the twin moons, Song looked up at the stars where day had first fallen from and wondered how many other worlds existed out there, and how many might someday know the story of a lone human who had taught a peaceful race to survive without losing their soul.